How is everybody doing? Positive and productive, I hope. Thanks for tuning in. Thanks for sticking with me. Do me a favor, share the content with friends, family, anybody that you think the content is relevant to. Remember, local elections are more important than national elections, but dollars are stronger than votes. They won't stop until we stop them. Liberation comes at a cost. Who's willing to pay for it? If you're watching this on YouTube, please do me a favor, drop the purple hearts. It does a lot for the algorithm, does a lot for the videos. Thanks in advance. And just really quickly before we jump into this, just quick disclaimer. I guess most of you guys who know me know that I don't ask any of my viewers or followers for money or support or contributions of that, but I do implore you guys to share the content. So while I do have your attention, I am asking for purple hearts. So that is the currency over here at the Choosta Speaks is purple hearts in the algorithm. Hopefully that doesn't cost you a lot. But anyway, thanks again in advance. Just saying a few things for people in the ether. But no, just really quickly, I wanted to do something a little bit different, similar but different, right? Because you know me, I like to counter the talking points and the narratives. I think they're good conversations to have. I think a lot of conversations are good conversations to have. Listen, ladies and gentlemen, you're talking to a kid who grew up reading comic books. My friends and I, we've had our debates about whether Wolverine would beat Superman, whether the Flash is faster. Like, we've had these debates, so don't tell me the conversation isn't merited. Some of you guys have talked about whether Lou Alcindor is better than motherfucking LeBron James. I mean, so don't tell me the conversation is not worth having. Okay, let's continue. This is a serious conversation. So, uh, and you can Google this, read along as you will. You can Google some of these things. And if you find any evidence contrary to what I say, provide the link and I'll explore that aspect. I'll even thank you for giving me the information, the new information. So I do appreciate that. But jumping into this really quickly. So I asked Gronk, I said, how many black people are there in the United States? And from that population, how many black people are incarcerated in the United States? And what percentage is the black population incarcerated? So I know that was a very nuanced question, but I want to do something, which is because we hear all these talking points of people saying, "Oh, black people make up this portion of the, the prison population. Black people are this, inclined to do violent felonies and these things." So I'm not saying that those things are not true. I think those are conversations that we need to have. If 40 something percent, 38% of the black population or of the population who are in prison happen to be black people, I think that's a conversation the black community needs to have. We need to figure out the how and the why. However, that doesn't mean that all of us or that 40% of black people are incarcerated. That's not what that means. That means of the people who are incarcerated, 38 or 40% of them happen to be black. But let's read this. About 50 million black people live in the United States, roughly 14 to 15% of the total population. So we're not even 20% of the population, ladies and gentlemen. About 700,000 to 800,000 are incarcerated in prisons and jails. Black Americans make up 38 to 42%, roughly 2 million people behind bars nationwide. That's a lot of people. We can't ignore those numbers. However, that works out to roughly 1.4 to 1.6% of the black population incarcerated at any given time. The rate is much higher for black adults, especially black men, with black people incarcerated at several times the rate of white Americans. These numbers come from recent reports by groups like Prison Policy Initiative and the Bureau of Justice Statistics. So what we just gathered from there is that from there they're saying that there is about that there is about 700,000 to 800,000 incarcerated in prisons and jails. Black Americans make up about 38% to 42%, roughly 2 million people behind bars nationwide. So around 700,000 to 800,000 are incarcerated in prisons and jails. Black Americans make up 38 to 42%, roughly 2.2 million people behind nationwide. This works out roughly I don't understand that. I don't understand that. So where's the 700,000, 800,000 coming from? We'll have to do some more math in a minute. So I asked another question. In the United States, during the eras when the crack epidemic was historically the highest, what was the black population? So listen, during during the peak during the peak crack epidemic years in the late 1980s to early 1990s, the black population in the US was about 30 million. It was around 2.65 million in 1980, grew roughly to 30 million by 1990, and reached about 34 to 36 million by 2000. Exact numbers for black people incarcerated specifically for drug crimes back then are tricky to pin down precisely, but the surge was dramatic. In the mid 80s, drug offenders overall were a small part of the prison population. By the mid 90s, state prison alone had over 200,000 drug offenders, with black individuals making up a huge disproportionate share, often over half of drug prisoners in many states. Tens of thousands of black Americans were locked up for drug offenses at the height of it, driven by aggressive policing and harsh sentencing like the 100 to 1 crack versus powder cocaine rules. This was a big driver of the overall jump in black incarceration during that era. And listen, I'm not going to say that it was right what they were doing. I'm not going to say that. But what I am going to say is that if you know it was wrong and you know it was against you, why didn't you play the game? So if you know they was giving out less time for powder, why didn't you start selling powder? That's all I'm saying. Okay, never mind. I ain't going to even go there. Okay, so look. Okay, just during that era, just give me the black population that was incarcerated and the percentage versus the black population at that time. Again, and this is important because we're going to have a real conversation, ladies and gentlemen. I think we need to. And I want to clear up some things. During the peak crack epidemic years around 1990, the black population was about 30 million. Exact numbers for black people incarcerated specifically for drug crimes are hard to nail down for that era, but estimates put it in the range of roughly 60,000 to 100,000 behind bars for drug offenses at any given time in the early 1990s, including prisons and jails that represented about 0.2% or 0.3% of the black population. Black people, and we're going to go there in a minute, black people made up a huge disproportionate share, often over half of all drug prisoners during that time, even though they were about 12% of the overall population. The percentage was small relative to the total black population, but the absolute numbers and disparity exploded compared to before the crack era. So listen, they're saying that even though at that time, we're only 12% of the population, it was about 60,000 to 100,000 of us locked up behind bars for drug offenses. Now, from the total population of black people, that wasn't even 1% of us. So during the crack epidemic, understand something. We're not even going to go there. Hold on. We got to go here. Hold on. So from the information we just gathered and read, it's safe to conclude that black people are disproportionately or make up a high percentage of prison populations. However, when we look at the percentage of population of black people, those incarcerated represent a very small fraction of the black population, in most cases less than 5%. Yeah, that's right. Black Americans make up around 40% of the prison population, while being about 14% of the total US population. That's a clear overrepresentation. But when you look at the whole black population, only about 1.5 are incarcerated at any given time. So the vast majority of black people are not in prison. The disparity is real, but the absolute numbers affected are still, and we had some technical difficulties. So they're very small. So this is what I'm saying, ladies and gentlemen, and I think this is the conversation that needs to be had. So we have to pick and choose our battles, ladies and gentlemen, because on one aspect, we say that, well, we're incarcerated at a higher rate, and when we do something, they give us more time and more sentencing, and I'll talk about that in a moment. And we say these things, however, we understand that it doesn't affect the majority of us. The majority of black people are not committing crimes. The majority of black people were not selling crack. The majority of black people were not smoking crack. The majority of black people were not, but yet we use the crack epidemic as a crutch as to why our communities are not thriving and doing certain things, why we don't have certain things in our communities. For instance, when we say, why don't we rebuild, or why don't we do this, we bring up Black Wall Street, Tulsa, Oklahoma, Seneca Park, various things. So are we saying that because white people have historically done these things, which is why we no longer do these things? Because now here's the question that I have to ask. If you're telling me that, well, this because of white people and because of white people, and so now I need to know, do I have to ask white people? So if you say, well, I can't get along because white people, like, racism is alive and well. So if we're giving so much power to racism, systemic racism and all of that, so are we saying that white people still control our future? Are we saying that? Because if we're saying, well, we can't go get jobs, we can't rebuild, we can't do these things, all this stuff is against us, and every time we try, they keep us down. So are we saying the reason why we're still where we are in Black America as a society is because white people still hold the keys? So which one is it, ladies and gentlemen? Because it can't be both at the same time. I hate when people say two things can be true at the same time. Well, when you say things in a vacuum, of course they can be. Yes, you know it's true. I'm talking to you guys on the internet, and I'm also sitting in my room. And I don't know if you could hear it, but the fan is on. I could just say things that are true. Yes, all these things are true, but they're not contradictory to each other. So when we're talking about something that's contradictory to oneself, you can't have a paradox. So either white people hold the keys and are the arbiters of society and still are keeping black people historically oppressed, and therefore there's nothing we can do about it, or there is something that we can do about it. So if there is something that we can do about it, what is it? What is it? Because when we want to bring up the conversation about the 600, about the 60,000, the 100,000, we don't want to have that conversation. But then when we say, okay, well, let's go to school, let's do this, we want to bring up epigenetics. So let me get this straight. You tell me, well, black people don't learn the same way as white people, and IQ and intelligence, that stuff is racist, and everybody is different, and we all don't learn the same way. And I got past trauma from my grandfathers and grandmothers in my body because of slavery, because of epigenetics. So now when someone says, maybe you have low IQ, or maybe you might be retarded, now you want to get offended. But you just admitted to that, ladies and gentlemen. I'll bring up the video of the black people saying that the gorillas were their cousins and saying that they are silverbacks and they come from gorillas. I bring it up all the time. I don't know about y'all, but when we played football, if you were one of those guys you were as a tackler, you knew how to hit, you could crack somebody. We used to call ourselves silverbacks. That's what we used to say. We used to refer to ourselves as gorillas. But now when the white coach say, hell yeah, that boy hit like a silverback. Hell yeah, that boy built like that boy strong as a gorilla. Now you're offended. So I don't understand. And that's when two things cannot be true, ladies and gentlemen. That's when they can't. Because either saying you're a gorilla is either offensive or it's not. It's not offensive depending on who said it. See, and this is when my chauvinism shows. Ladies and gentlemen, tell your kids to look away really quickly. I'm sorry. It's so big, my chauvinism just slips out every now and again. I have to hide it. I have to hide it, ladies and gentlemen. I'm so sorry. I'm so sorry. But this is when I come to single mothers and women running households. Because that's a woman's trait and tactic right there. to say, well, if my girlfriend calls me a bitch, it's okay because she's just my friend. But if you call me a bitch, well, then we have a problem. So you don't mind being called a bitch. It's not the word that offends you. It's who's saying it that offends you. And this is the problem in society, ladies and gentlemen. Black people, black society, we continue to permeate ourselves like this, and we continue to promote this type of an ideology. I can say nigga, but the white man can't say nigga. I can do these things, but you can't do these things. So let me get this straight. So why is it, let me get this straight. So why is it when Leroy go get his own business and Leroy hire nothing but paisas, right? Leroy hire nothing but paisas. And you say, well, Leroy got to do what he got to do. You know what I'm saying? Leroy got to, shit, man, them paisas, they be working hard. And, man, Juan come on Saturday and Sunday, and Juan do a good job. So why is that okay? But then when Juan and Javier get their own business and they don't want to hire Jamal or Kenneth or Ray Ray, why do you got a problem with it? Explain that to me. So when Jamal hired Juan and don't want to hire Kenneth, Jamal, or Ray Ray, that's okay. But when Juan don't want to hire Jamal, Pookie, or Ray Ray, you got a problem with it. Explain it. See, y'all get mad at me because I ask the questions that y'all can't really answer. And y'all know y'all can't answer because y'all are just hypocrites. That's all you guys are just hypocrites. You want to call out Carmelo Anthony got convicted because he had an all-white juror. That was the reason why he was found guilty. Because he had an all-white juror. So let me get this straight. When Angela Davis was found not guilty by an all-white juror, all-white jury, what does that mean? That means nothing then, right? When Mr. Chow was found not guilty by 3 to 5 black jurors, what does that mean then? Because you said the reason why Carmelo was found guilty was because he had an all-white jury. So now when I bring up people finding not guilty by an all-white jury and people being found innocent by black people, tell me what it means. But you can't. You know why you can't? Because it doesn't make any fucking sense. Because you're not using any fucking logic. You're just speaking from your emotions. This is what women do, ladies and gentlemen. We grew up watching our mothers and our aunties rant and rave about a whole bunch of bullshit, so we adopt said behaviors and ideology, and we're not making sense. It's okay to be passionate, ladies and gentlemen. It's okay, because passion is emotion. That's feeling. That means you care. That's fine, but you gotta be able to logically substantiate and articulate your fucking position. Don't just say because I fucking said so. Don't make a claim and then tell me to prove it. I hate when black people do this all the time. We make all these fucking assertions and claims, and I say, well, where'd you get this information from? Prove it to me. Prove it to me. You know why people say, oh, I don't need Google? I don't need Google? Because niggas know I'm the Google king. You could tell me something, and I'll tell you that it's not true, and let's Google it right now. And we will Google it in real time, and you'll look stupid. So you know why? What most people don't want to do with me, they don't want to Google shit. They don't want to Google shit. So how do we know the truth, ladies and gentlemen? That's what we do in the black community. Well, you know what we say? Listen here. Listen here, you about to go hypothetically, right? I know we don't like hypotheticals and we can't walk down the road, but you're going to have to fucking walk with me. Listen, matter of fact, y'all going to have to start running with me. I'm tired of fucking walking down this road so fucking slow. We got to run down the hill. We got to run down these hills sometimes, ladies and gentlemen. So now, get in the fucking car. You seen the fat people when they walk their dogs, they drive down the street and the dog is, running. Okay, never mind. Let's continue. It's neither here nor there. I tell you, it's somewhere. It's on X. It's on Rumble. Hopefully you're subscribed. So now, ladies and gentlemen, I tell you, hey, because you say, hey, I'm going to get married and I got a family and I want to get a safe car and I want to get a vehicle that's affordable and gas and economical and so forth and so on. And you give me all these variables that you want your vehicle to have. And I say, that's awesome. That's amazing. You know what? According to J.D. Power and Associates, according to these people, this is why they say this is safer, X, Y, and Z. And you tell me, you know what? Oh, excuse me. That was a Fambalaya, Fambaruski, Fambarina. Y'all don't remember that. But anyway. So you tell me that doesn't matter. You say, well, my cousin Tyrone said that Hondas is better than Volvos, or Hondas is actually more safe. Okay, well, where did Tyrone get this information from? Oh, because, he been driving Hondas a long time. Okay, well, according to the research and according to what we can read, we could understand what safety features they do or don't have. And then you know what we end up doing? Well, you know what? You believe whatever you want to believe, and I'm going to believe whatever I want to believe. And that's how we walk away from each other in the black community, ladies and gentlemen. So now listen, Linda. Listen, we got to check on him because I don't know if Linda started listening. Probably not, because y'all ain't listened yet. So now here it is. Think about it. You came to your uncle, to your cousin with the question, with the problem, with the scenario. They tried to give you factual information as to why we should make said decision, according to J.D. Power and Associates, according to the Better Business Bureau, according to homesavers.com, according to the fucking data and information. And you want to tell me what a nigga said. And then I say, okay, I'm not saying what the nigga said ain't true, but let's understand the data and the information. No, we can't do that. You know what you're going to tell me? You believe what you want to believe. I'm going to believe whatever I want to believe. So how do we in the black community, ladies and gentlemen, figure out what we should do? See, y'all don't understand that word, should. See, should and could rhyme, but they have nothing to do with each other. They really don't. Because listen, just because you could do something doesn't mean you should. And what's the difference? It's very simple. Should is the best thing. I'm telling y'all what it means. See, y'all don't like definitions. That's because y'all don't fucking read. If y'all would read the goddamn dictionary, y'all wouldn't have a problem with the word. You got a problem with the word because in your mind, you made it mean what you wanted to mean. And now when Webster and Merriam say that that's not what it fucking means, now you got a problem. Now you got a problem. So how the fuck do I know what the hell you mean when the word says this and everybody collectively knows this? Well, to me it means this. Well, how the fuck did I know to you it meant that? Explain that to me. Explain that to me, because when I read the word, here are the fucking definitions of the word. Oh, well, to me it means this. How the fuck did I know that? And then when I say, well, explain it, explain what it means to you, I don't have to, it don't mean that to me. Okay, well, what does it mean to you? I don't gotta explain it. We already know what it means. How the fuck do we know what it means if the dictionary says this and you tell me that that's not what it means to me? How the fuck do we know what it means then? Do you see why we are the dumbest people ever? Our conversations, nigga. I see why black people have high blood pressure and aneurysms. I get it now. I get it. Because trying to talk to niggas, your head will fucking explode. And we think this shit is normal. We think this shit is okay. Well, this is just how we are. Why are we this way? Because it's not the majority of us. But I'll tell you what, it's that 60,000, it's that 100,000 who are very loud, who the Democratic Party is championing for. Because remember what the girl said? They were only trying to rob you. You didn't have to shoot them. That's where we are in the black community. So when I'm trying to rob you, you tell me, well, you mean to tell me some goods and services, a bottle of water is worth my life. Well, let me ask you this. Had you known that you could lose your life for a bottle of fucking water or for taking my car, would you do it? Had you known that, would you do it then? So no, I'm not saying it's worth your life, but are you saying it's worth your life?
Because you know what I'm saying it was worth? I'm saying it was worth my hard time and effort. That's why I went to go fucking work for it and go get it. That's what I'm saying it's worth. That's what I went to go do for it. So what are you saying it's worth? Oh, you're saying it's worth taking it. You're willing to take that risk, right? Well then, what are you willing to risk for it? Oh, you was only willing to risk jail time. Okay. And maybe not, right? Because they changed the law so much. Listen, ladies and gentlemen, we have to get tough on crime. We have to. And the reason why the majority of us don't want to be tough on crime is because the majority of us are criminals. I'll be the first person to raise my hand. I'm a criminal. I don't continuously commit crimes, but I'm an ex-felon. I've been to prison. I tell you guys this all the time. So I know. So let's break some things down. Let's break some things down. We're going to make this a little bit long today. I don't know how long we're going to make it. Let's break some things down. I want to talk to you guys about the different type of black people and why it's hard to relate with black people. No, seriously, because I know, and we're not all the same. I hate the fact that black people are not a monolith, but yet if you do something that's deemed white people or it from a different culture or what this ain't the normal stuff niggas do, well then so we're supposed to be a monolith. And I'm not saying being a monolith is a bad thing. I think maybe we should get monolithic in certain things. Maybe we should. Maybe we could have some cohesion in the black community. Maybe if we were monolithic on certain things, we as a collective would fund it, finance it, implore it, champion it, and promote it. And not just twerking in the streets. Not just Ray doing whatever he got to do to survive. Maybe if we had some cohesion around something, right? I don't know what that should be. I don't know what that is. I'm not going to say it's religion. I'm not going to say it's politics. Maybe it's a conversation. But in the black community, we know all skin folk ain't kin folk, right? So is everybody's word valid if we already come into it with all skin folk ain't kin folk? So when do we stop the colorism in the black community? We talk about racism, but yet we still practice colorism. How many men right now will avoid being with a dark-skinned woman? Isn't that a thing still in the black community? The black women, not so much now. A lot of black women, the light brights and the high yellows, shout out to Wesley Snipes and a few other brothers, Tyrese, and, they made it cool to be a dark-skinned brother. You feel what I'm saying? But y'all know in the 80s, man, we had it rough, even in the early 90s. All dark-skinned people had it rough. But why is that a thing? Why is it I'm black and I'm proud and I'm black and beautiful, but yet you see a lot of men, they want to go get with an ambiguous-looking girl with green eyes and straight hair? Why do we do that in the black community? Oh, well, black come in all shades and colors, and black come in all this and all that. That is very true, but why do we avoid one aspect of our shades and colors? Why is that? Ladies, and these are the real questions, ladies and gentlemen. And y'all don't like these hard, uncomfortable questions because you were taught to avoid them. You were taught that what's understood doesn't need to be explained. Well, what if it's not fucking understood, stupid? Maybe this is the reason why we keep repeating said behaviors. Maybe this is the reason why that number went from 45,000 to 60,000 to 100,000 and it's climbing now. Maybe that's why that's happening. And maybe before it becomes that 5% of the population, before it becomes that 20%, before it's a majority, maybe we nip it in the bud while it's a microcosm. Or do we not want to avoid certain things? Why is it that in the black community, when we start talking about what we should do, because now we're going to go back to this should word, right? What you ought to do. That's what the old folks told us. Ought and should is cousins. They're synonymous with each other. That's what you ought to do. What does that mean? That means that is the best thing for you to do out of the situations and circumstances. That's what that means. Doesn't mean it's the best thing ever in life, but out of the situations that presented itself, that's what you ought to do. That's what you should do. Should is the best thing. So you gauge it. You look at the ramifications. You weigh it on a Libra scale. But we don't want to have conversations. You know what we tell our kids to do, ladies and gentlemen? We tell our kids, well, you go be whatever you want to be in this world. You go do whatever you want to do. Why is it that in the black community, we tell our kids to just go be whatever you want to be and do whatever you want to do, but then when we grow up, we say racism is real and the black man and the white man is holding us down and we can't do everything. So which one is it? Are we lying to our children? Can our children do whatever? Which one is it? I don't know. I don't know. I'm asking the questions because I do not know, ladies and gentlemen. And I'm sure somebody has the answers. I'm sure you do. Because all the people who are making these assertions, I come to you with the answers. Since you're telling me what it is, I'm asking you, how did we get here and why and what should we do next? And now you don't have the answers. Now you're mad at me for asking the question. Well, then why were you so loud, ladies and gentlemen? What do we do? What do we do, ladies and gentlemen, with these 60 plus thousand gentlemen, mostly black men, some black women? What do we do with them when they get out of incarceration? What opportunities do we afford them as a society? If collectively the black community is now agreeing and saying society is racist and is pent up against us and is set up for us for our downfall. So now when somebody is a victim of said society, what do we do collectively so that they can now avoid said rigors and they don't have to fall in those traps again? What are we doing as a society collectively, ladies and gentlemen? Because we want to say there's the problem, but now where is the solution? Where's the solution? But then when I give you a solution, you don't like it. When I tell you, listen, Ray, listen, Leroy, do good in school. Matter of fact, go get a trade. And if you're a C student, you more than likely need to go into the military, get into ROTC. And I recommend that for all gentlemen, whether you got a father in the house or not. You're just going to learn some discipline and some structure at a young age. You're going to learn how to compartmentalize, something that a lot of men are lacking and missing in today's society. We are supposed to be able to deal with all of these different things and make the best decisions out of the circumstances. Because as a man, I can't think what I got to do for me. I got to think about everybody else. I got to think about my wife. I got to think about my kids. I got to think about grandma. I got to think about my mom. I got to think about my neighbor. We don't do that no more. You planted that tree close to your neighbor's fence and you knew the roots was going to break his fence, but you didn't give a fuck, right? You didn't give a fuck. But remember back in the day when you said, Papa, why you? No, I ain't going to do that because that's going to disturb Bill's stuff over there. So I'm going to give him a little respect. He's going to give me a respect. We don't do that anymore. We demand all the respect. We don't want nobody in our personal space. We don't want nobody pointing their fingers, hollering and yelling at us. But the minute we don't understand something or somebody, we feel offended, right? The minute we feel offended, we get to raise our voice and point our fingers in people's faces. But we're justified because I feel like you disrespected me. But then if I say, well, that was not my intention, I didn't mean to disrespect you. Well, it don't matter. So it doesn't matter that I didn't mean to do it. That doesn't matter. So now let me get this straight. What type of a parent are you if your child knocks over the milk and they didn't mean to do it? They weren't playing in the house. They just happened to be clumsy and they knocked it over. So it doesn't matter. You still beat their ass anyway. Or do they get a whooping because they was throwing the ball in the house and you said don't throw the ball and then they broke the vase and then the milk spilled? Or is it all the same? Because from the way your logic works, you would then say Carmelo deserves 35 years in prison. From the way your logic works, you would actually say that. And you tell me no, but then if something happens to your kid, even though your kid actually caused it, because then you say your kid he wasn't supposed. So Carmelo had self-defense because somebody was pushing him. But then in the same breath, you then tell me the white man doesn't have self-defense when he wakes up and strangers are in his home with firearms. I don't understand. So in one aspect, I have self-defense, and in another aspect, I don't. So let me get this straight. Carmelo had self-defense because he was pushed by somebody his age. Granted, he did outweigh him, and the size differential could be argued. It wasn't, because it was really non-existent. We live in a pussified world where you're afraid of a guy. I know guys, oh, I ain't gonna fight that nigga. Shit, I don't think I could beat that nigga up. So you're not gonna fight him because you don't think you could win, pussy. But then we don't say George Zimmerman was right when Trayvon was on top of him, beating him, smashing his head into the concrete. Now George Zimmerman doesn't deserve to have self-defense. So which one is it? You could push me and I could self-defend and stab you, but if you beating my head into the fucking pavement, oh, wait a minute, hold up, wait a minute. Which one is it, ladies and gentlemen? Oh, I get it. Because just like your auntie and your mother said, her girlfriend could call her a bitch, but nobody else can. This is why in the black community, we call our women bitches and whores, and we call each other niggas, and we disrespect each other. But then when other people see us doing it, and then they do it, we want to get upset. I tell you, ladies and gentlemen, I know a woman who was a crackhead, and she used to sell her body, prostitute her body for crack or for money for drugs. But she would like to avoid the middleman. She would just do it straight for the crack. And somebody called her a crack whore, and her son happened to be standing there, and her son shot the gentleman. The gentleman survived. But my point of the story was he shot him for saying the truth, ladies and gentlemen. However uncomfortable that truth was. But now let me ask you this. Had his mother not been a crack whore, would that man been allowed to say that? And also, by the way the sons and the uncles and cousins responded to that woman being a crack whore, would that man have felt the onus to even, or the provocation to even say that? Because I know people who they have family members that may be homeless and figuring some things out and going about their way, but you know what? They still treat them with respect. Even though they don't agree with what they're doing, they're not going to let you talk bad about them, and they don't talk bad about them. They talk bad about their situation, maybe about the behaviors, and maybe about their choices, but they do not talk bad about their family members. Therefore, they don't allow anyone else to talk bad about their family members. But you know what we do? We talk bad about the black community. Oh, Choosta, you the main one talking bad. Am I talking bad about the black community, or am I talking bad about behaviors that exist in the black community that we champion? Which one am I talking bad about? Tell me which one. Explain it. But see, this involves a little bit of critical thinking, and I realize that most of you guys have the attention of a goldfish. And that's okay. I tell you, it's okay. But listen, ladies and gentlemen, because we've made this video just under the monetization mark, and y'all know I do this to get paid, right? All y'all know that I've been doing these videos for years on end with, we're not even going to talk about the amount of views, but anyway, y'all know I do this specifically for the money, right? That's why my Cash App is in my bio. That's why, okay, never mind. Listen, ladies and gentlemen, I don't want to be sarcastic as much as I am. But the reason why I am is because a lot of people are just stupid, and they don't want to accept being stupid. I was talking with a lady the other day. Realistically, I was speaking with a lady the other day, and I told her something that she didn't understand, or she didn't believe to be true. I won't say she didn't understand it. So what I told her was that certain DMVs are open on Saturdays. That's what I told her. And she told me, well, I used to work for the DMV. I used to work for, federal government and various departments and so forth and so on, yada, yada, yada. And I said, that's great. I said, I don't know if it was a COVID thing or what happened, but I know specifically in my region, when one of the offices was closed due to remodeling or something, I don't even know why the office was closed. They were routing people to this office. They then started having overflow. So then they started telling people to come on Saturdays. They start getting an influx on Saturdays, so then this one would be open some Saturdays, and then some Saturdays a different office would be open, and they started, going between the both of them. So I don't know if every office is open on Saturday, how it fluctuates, but I know at the time the offices were fluctuating. She said no DMVs are open on Saturdays. I said, you can just Google it. like I don't want to go back and forth what you're telling me to be true, right? So she Googled it, and it said over 60 locations. She said, well, which ones are open? I don't fucking know. I just know that some are. Well, how do you know it rotates? Well, show me where it rotates and show me how they do the scheduling, and that it's not every other one. And this, whoa, hold on. Well, I thought that you said that they're not. I thought the main crux of the point was that some are open on Saturdays. I thought that was the main point. And very quickly and dismissively, oh, I thought I conceded to that point already, but show me that they rotate and show me how they do this and show me and explain to me, because I don't believe that and I don't believe and that don't make sense. And well, maybe it doesn't, and then she kind of you know what? This one does it better. Even though I end it, it comes back. Okay, thank God for an Android. So she basically said, well, if you can't show me, she didn't say it verbatim, but she said, well, if you can't show me that they rotate or that they alternate based on Saturdays, then I don't believe that they're open on Saturdays. Something to the effect of that. And I said, well, hold on. You just conceded that they are open on Saturdays. Well, yeah, it says that, but you can't show me that they rotate. Well, what does their rotating have to do with anything? Well, you said that they rotate every other Saturday. I said some rotate every other Saturday. That wasn't the point. The point is that some are open on Saturdays. Yeah, that doesn't matter, but okay, so the main point of you work for the DMV or you used to do federal stuff or all of this. So the main point was that some are open on Saturdays. That was the main point. At least to me it was. Now, if to you the main point is, okay, well, it doesn't matter that I said none are open on Saturdays and that some are. Now the main point is that show me that they alternate. I can't show you that. I don't know how or why they alternate, even if they still do. What I do know is that during some of the Saturdays when I did have to go, sometimes this office was open and sometimes this office was closed. And sometimes the other one was open and sometimes the other one was closed on Saturdays. I do know that. You know how I do know that? Because the point of why I said that was because I had to come on Saturdays, which I knew some of them are open on Saturdays. This is why I don't like talking to black people, because we have to change the narrative. I tell you, they say shifting the goalposts. We shift. Jesus Christ. I tell you, they say, oh, we shifted the goalposts. We moved the goalposts. And I tell you guys, y'all moved the goalposts so far. But look, I don't know what y'all do because it's damn near the same field. Cause we playing football, but y'all moved the goalposts, and now we're not playing football. We're playing football. Bring the goalposts back. Bring the goddamn goalposts back. Let's stick to the point. And I know I'm jumping around and I'm making several points in my but here's the thing. Here is the point of what I'm trying to tell you guys. There are several things in the black community that we need to fix. Just because the majority of us are not committing crimes doesn't mean we don't need to fix that percentage that continuously commit crimes, and that percentage is rising. Just because the majority of us we're not affected by the crack epidemic, that doesn't mean that we don't need to do something about addiction and different things in the black community and the various things that come with that. So these are problems that we need to fix. And then when you say, well, it only affects a small percentage of us. So then if it only affects a small percentage of us, why do we talk about the crack epidemic? Why, if it only affects a small percentage of us, why do we always say, oh, we can't get a fair shake in the trials in the government? Oh, we always this. So then why do we put this Chicken George personification on? So which one is it? If it's an unfair thing and it's a disadvantage, then let's figure out how to fucking fix it. And then if you want to tell me it only affects a small percentage of us, then let's not fucking talk about it and who gives a fuck. Right? Which one is it? Which one? It can't be both. It cannot be. You cannot tell me that systemic racism is still alive and well and thriving and that white people don't dictate and control your future. You can't tell me that. That doesn't fucking logically work. If systemic racism is alive and well, then you're telling me white people dictate and control your future. That's what you're telling me. Or are you saying systemic racism is alive and well, but it don't affect you? That's what you're telling me? Okay, so now I want to know, how doesn't it affect you? What did you do? Tell me, explain to me so I can live above the fray. I want to get out the rat race too. If systemic racism is alive and well and a nigga never get a fair shake and we're going to always be second-class citizen and so forth and so on, explain to me what the fuck should the majority of black people be doing to fix the situation? Or if you say, well, the majority of us is fine, and, it ain't even the majority of us, so then why the fuck are we talking about this stupid shit that goes on in society? Y'all niggas need to pick a fight and pick a goddamn battle. I'm telling you. Look it. So, and see, y'all don't want to understand. This is why society is not taking us serious. Y'all want to know the real answers. This is why society is not taking us serious. For instance, we mad that Mr. Chow shot the black boy and then got off, but yet how many times do we say the Korean people and the Asian people don't like niggas? But yet why do niggas continuously give the Asians and the Koreans all they fucking money? Why do you always go down to their stores? You talking about in New York, they always say the Puerto Ricans and the Hispanics and the bodegas don't like them. Poppy always in there talking shit. So explain to me, why do you always go to Poppy to go buy your fucking quarter waters and your bubble gums and shit? Explain that to me, stupid. If you know these people don't like you, why do you give them your dollars? If you know the police is racist and looking for a reason to kill a nigga, explain to me why you're putting yourself in a situation where they're going to kill a nigga. So if you know the police want a reason to shoot you, when he say put your hands up and get out the car, get on the ground, tell me why you don't do it. If you know he's looking for a reason to shoot you, they just gonna shoot us for anything. So then tell me why you're not fucking listening, stupid. Explain that to me. Explain it. I don't get it. Make it make sense. We just say anything in a fucking vacuum. And then when people say, okay, what do you mean by that? When people hit us with the Drewski, right? Then we want to get upset and get offended. Because we know we don't mean shit by it. You know what happens? We heard the talking point from somebody and it sound good. It triggered our emotional value. It's called I want to say a medulla shutdown, medulla shutdown, something like that, where basically parts of your brain shut down and your emotions take over and you're not thinking logically. It happens. It happens. It happens to women a lot easier than it happens to men. For instance, like the stress hormone, cortisol? Y'all know about that? Okay. Do you know that, for instance, and this is crazy, that if you gave per body weight and mass and height and all of that good stuff, age and all that good stuff. So if you compared a similar man to a similar woman and then introduce the same amount of cortisol into their system, that women take about 30 to 45 days to metabolize that same amount of cortisol that a man would take about 3 to 4 hours to. Think about that. See, y'all don't even understand what that means, right? Y'all don't understand what that means. So think about it. I'll put it in as simple as explanation as I can. When you trigger or stress out a man and woman, similar to age, body weight, size, age, all that, they're very similar. So when you stress them out, a man gets over that stress in about an hour or so. His body is no longer responding to that stress in about 3 to 4 hours. It's completely gone. A woman, her body is still physically responding to the same stress about a month later. This is science. This is science. And when I forgot how much it was, but I forgot how much cortisol they did and how, what the dynamics were, but it was for the amount that it took. I forgot how they did the baseline, because when they did it with the same amount per same amount, and they had to use a very small amount to get this number, but when they were doing it, dosing it at a higher rate to get the amount, it was that these women were off the charts. Like their cortisol and the stress levels were off the charts. Like the guys were fine within, a week or so or a few days, when they were like stressing the guys out over a week's worth of time or considerable amounts of cortisol. It was really fucking the women up. So they had to lower the test study and the test results. And what they figured out is that even then the women were still suffering about a month later, and yet the guys were like fine in a few hours. And so the baseline was that what a man can respond to, because cortisol and your stress hormone. So think about it. So think about this. If I stress out a woman enough, and then I make her make certain decisions 5 to 6 hours later, she is still making decisions from a aspect or a mentality of stress, of triggers. So now when they say I'm in survivor mode and all of this and all of that, well, think about it, ladies and gentlemen. We haven't, as a society and black people, been in survivor mode for 30 to 40 years. But black women are still telling us we got to still worry about things that we don't need to worry about. They're still stressed out about stuff. And so now the new decisions that they got to make, they're making them from places of stress. This is why they're in survivor mode still. Because when the guys are fine 3 to 4 hours later, when the guys were fine once the 80s and 90s happened, because think about it. Look it. See, y'all want to get mad, put the women in, put the kids away here. My chauvinism is just so big, it just slips out every now and again. Black women want to talk about how smart they are and how educated they are, but yet, why is it that black men make more money than black women do? Explain that to me. If black women are more educated than black men, because of the patriarchy, right? Is that why? Because of the patriarchy? So is the patriarchy, so if it was the patriarchy, then wouldn't black men be going to school more and be getting education and degrees more? And I'll tell you what it is. Because, the glass ceiling, and some people still, and this is what's wrong with black people. We're like, honestly, I want to say we're catching up. We're catching up. But in mass, black people, we're like 20 years behind society. Like, for real. And like, this is like no shade on us. It's just, we are. A lot of conversations and things that society has figured out and found out to be true, we're now having a conversation 5 to 6 years later, sometimes even 20 years later. Like, a lot of black women now are talking about the glass ceiling. That's been debunked so long ago. We already understand why the glass ceiling even exists, right? Women made the glass ceiling, and it's just a figment of their imagination. So if we compare it, no, Choosta, women don't get paid as much for men in the same positions, and all these talking points. You're right, they're talking points. Here's the thing. When you go look at the science, do you understand that when you compare time worked, calling time off, sick time, work time, working overtime for not pay, seeking out promotions, seeking out higher education for said position, women do that way less than men do. Way less. Or calling time off a lot more. So women, and so if you're talking about an engineer or a higher, epsilon as far as sales and in the fucking corporate ladder and all these fucking CEO executive style positions and shit like that, women call off more. Women will not go pursue their education more for the position. Women will not stay overtime more, even paid or unpaid. They just don't do it. So they call off more and they work less hours, nor do they attain higher educations in said positions. So this is why they don't make as much as men in these positions, because they don't work as hard as men do in said positions. And this is across the board in almost all jobs. In almost all sectors of employment, this is true. Whether we go to blue collar, white collar, service, hospitality. Here's a funny fact. Do you know that when they scale, because people will tell you, oh, women are better shooters than men because they're more this and this. That's actually not true. There was one demographic where women scored not even considerably better, but a little bit better than men in shooting pistols from the prone position with no stress. However, when shooting rifles, higher calibers, running, doing various things, it was not even a comparison. It's just not. But here's the funny fact. Do you know that women police officers are less likely to fire their firearms in a line of duty? Women are less likely to shoot somebody. And do you also know that a woman is more likely to have her firearm taken from her in the line of duty? Do you guys know that? Look it up. These are the facts. So I want to tell you guys a lot of different stuff. I want to tell you, but you guys, again, you guys have the attention as a goldfish. I wish you guys would just share the content. I don't want you guys to send me money. Now, if you guys want to get some space shackles and get some crypto, the crypto is free. So it just helps me if you get some of this free crypto. What does it help me do? It just helps me get a circular economy started. So then when you have a new currency and I say, hey, this is the stuff you could do with this currency, and you're like, oh shit, Choosta, thanks, I got a whole bunch of it for free. And now I say, see, I gave y'all free money. Neither here nor there. I just tell you guys it's somewhere. Maybe it's on X, maybe it's on Rumble. Hopefully you're subscribed. But again, hopefully you're sharing the content with friends and family. So ladies and gentlemen, I want to talk about the prescriptors. So before we end this, right? Because we're going to end this soon. So I want to talk about the prescriptors of what is recommended and what should we do in the Black community. One of the main things that we need to do, ladies and gentlemen, because as a society, as a community, as a collective, we need to understand that if we're not going to depend on the system, the white man, others, etc., however we want to rate, word it, or phrase it, we're going to have to depend on ourselves. And with that being said, that means a lot of the jobs and a lot of the things that it takes to run a society, the garbage men, the undertakers, the sewer workers, the smart niggas who figure out how to make all this fucking shit work. We need the nerds. We need the smart niggas. We need the talking ass niggas who want to talk about this shit all goddamn day. We need all of these people in society. But more than anything, we need each other, ladies and gentlemen. If we're going to now say and make the assertion that society is against us, then that means we need each other more than anything. And in that needing of each other, that means we need to have skills, services that we could provide for one another. And we should have a good attitude in doing so. These are the things that we need, ladies and gentlemen. If we don't have these things, then that means somebody else will always be able to come and infiltrate us and manipulate us because they're able to provide something that we need and we don't have. These things will always be fundamentally true. We need educators. No, we don't need LeBron's school when the literacy rate is lower than the national average, which is already low. No, we don't need Dr. Umar with millions of dollars years later and still hasn't built a school yet. No, we don't need those things, but we do need the things that we need, which is schools. We need our own educational system. And that doesn't mean that we can't go get educated by the system abroad. You know what, ladies and gentlemen, a little cousin of mine, I like to call her my little niece, but my little cousin, she had a chance to go study abroad in England and go do some things, but black women said she shouldn't go. And oh, my baby can't go over there, and then people gonna try to take advantage and blah 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 blah. And we're always missing our opportunities. And granted, of course, crazy things can happen all over in the world anywhere. That those are the things. But here's the thing.